Hello, welcome. I'm Nicholas Wilson.
And I'm Cynthia Calori.
And you're listening to the podcast.
This could go either way.
All right, we're back.
All right, welcome. So on this episode...
Yeah.
I was just having a moment going, how many episodes have you done? But it's not many. It's not like we've been doing this a long time.
We'll probably label it as episode 4, but it's technically really, I would say, our second true episode.
Our second true episode of trying to make this legit. Yeah, we have an interesting topic. My shirt says it all. And if you're a fan, you should immediately recognize this. And if you don't, well, you might not like this episode. But we warned you about... This could go either way. So how this came about. So Nick, how did this episode come about?
Wow, you suggested it. That's what I was going to ask you. Why you wanted to do this episode?
Well, he and I, Nick and I have been fans of South Park for a long time, and we just have this very weird obsession with this specific episode. And I can't recall for sure, but I can't remember if because of the South Park episode we got into heavy metal, but I have like an inkling that when I saw the episode initially, that I was like, holy, that's that movie, that crazy 80s film that they were paying homage to on the episode. So that's kind of how it came about, except that we've just always loved this. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure we saw the South Park episode first, and then we were talking about the movie, and we were like, I don't think I've ever seen it, and then we watched the movie. I'm pretty sure that's how.
That's probably what happened.
We have obsessions with a few different South Park episodes.
Yes. This is just one that I don't know why it just popped in my brain that day. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about. People need to talk about this. It really is an epic episode. Yeah.
Well, first I guess you should talk about the real issue of the episode. And the problem with our kids today, and that would be cheesing.
It's actually a great segue if you think about it from the previous episode. We're worried about what about these kids? That's a whole other episode.
So, for those who haven't seen the episode, cheesing is when you anger a male cat so that it wants to spray, and then you let it spray into your face, and then it causes massive hallucinations that transport you to one of the worlds of the movie heavy metal. Hence the connection.
Yes. So the whole... It's just absurd. The whole episode, it's called... The episode is... I was pulling it up again.
It's Major Boobage.
It's called Major Boobage. I definitely remember the name. But it was aired in 2008. And so, yes, we're going back. And it was season 12 of South Park. And it was the episode 3 for that season. And I did at least try to reach out to Trey Parker on Instagram. I did.
Because I'm sure he manages that account himself.
I don't know. There's a lot of selfies with him and his wife and kids. So I was like, it's called... Anyway, whatever. Point is, I did try to reach out, and I was like, hey, we're nobody. And we're doing this really random-ass episode on one of your old-ass episodes of South Park, Major Boobage. I was like, could you give us any cool thing about it that we could, mention? And I got nothing. But that's okay. At least I tried. Maybe one day he'll reach out later and I can let you know. But anyway, so what was our so the whole obsession was
it's just hilarious. I think it's just a hilarious episode.
It is hilarious.
And then the whole episode is that Kenny hears about cheesing, and so then he starts cheesing, and it transports him to the various heavy metal worlds. And that's like the high of cheesing.
Yes. And the draw was, it was just like this really cool rockin' place to go to.
Oh yeah, because it's it's not the exact art, right? So then it's like the whole, he flies there and everything's got tits all over it.
Yes, that's hence why it's called Major Boobage.
Well, no, I'm pretty sure Major Boobage is the guy whose daughter that Kenny's trying to get with. That's the whole thing. Is that you like every time you get, it's like, I mean, the whole thing's kind of done like chasing the dragon.
Yes. Oh yes.
Like
yes.
every time you get high, you're trying to get to this super hot chick so that you can get it with this hot chick.
Yes.
And it's Major Boobage's daughter.
That's what I never
Major
knew
Boobage.
that.
I could be wrong, but I think that is.
Well, it could be a double play where it's a lot of boobs everywhere on everything.
Because they have to fight in Nepopolis in the
Bristry
yes. Because I'm pretty sure it was just we love the episode and the absurdity of it, and so then it's like, well, we got to see where the inspiration of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm pretty sure that we saw the South Park first.
The only reason I'm thinking I might have seen.
I mean, it's possible we might have seen it. It's from the 80s.
But I can't say for sure. But in my high school days when we were getting into getting stoned, and we were like, have you ever watched this on weed? Like that. So when we were going through that whole phase, I remember we were always trying to find. We're like, oh, Dark Side of the Moon. You listen to that? Well, watch it with the Wizard of Oz backwards or some shit. I don't know. And then
it lines up with the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It does line up with the Wizard of Oz. Like watching The Wall from Pink Floyd. You're like, whoa. And I'm pretty sure. I remember somebody bringing up and maybe like watching bits and pieces of heavy metal, but I was like, that's too much for me.
I just recently actually rewatched the movie. It's certainly an interesting movie in its own right.
I did not rewatch it, but I watched Major Boobage a bunch of times.
I mean, it's an interesting story. It's basically because the heavy metal magazine itself was generally like a collection of stories.
Okay.
So it came out. I did a little bit of follow up on it. My dad used to subscribe to the magazine, or I don't know if he subscribed or regularly purchased them, however it worked. But so it was a periodical. It would sometimes, for certain periods of times, it was month for month. Some other periods of time, it was like quarterly, depending on how they were doing or whatever. But it was a collection of different stories. Some of them were serialized. Some of them were the whole stories per issue. And it was kind of a big deal because it really changed how kind of comics were, comics and graphic novels were seen in the U.S. Is really because it was back in the 70s when it first started to come over, and comics, they had the comic code and all this kind of stuff. Comics have to be like positive, and the superheroes have to be good guys and all that kind of stuff, right? I may have some of the timing wrong. I'm not an expert by any means, but that was when around the first time that comics were becoming or bringing that over, gave examples of how comics could be a little more risque. Because there's nudity in them, and there's a lot of sexuality in the heavy metal comics specifically. But then after that, then you start to have more independent comics that come out that deal with darker topics, and you have darker characters now in the 80s and 90s, like Spawn and things like that came out. I don't know where Frank Miller, where his stuff fit in. I don't know if that was before or after heavy metal, if that was allowed him to come out too. But that's kind of why heavy metal was a big deal, is it allowed this other type of graphic novel to break through.
So now it all makes sense. Because I feel like I remember you telling me that at one point. I'm like, yeah, whatever, this episode's amazing. Like, I didn't know. But so it was originally a comic, which makes sense how I got this T-shirt, because I did get it at Comic-Con.
Well, Comic-Con at this point is just anything that's like pop culture at this point.
But it was a comic, I guess. So
right,
anyway.
it was considered a collection, and it was primarily like European, is where it first came from. Like they found it was I believe it was originally a magazine out of France, and then they brought it over, and I know like National Lampoons got involved in helping produce it in the U.S., and so then it had just like I said, alternative stories, and there were some serialized ones and independent ones, and so it was just a place for artists to be able to create their stories in a collection.
So I don't know if you researched this, but where was the connection between it being a comic to it turning into a movie? And it's claimed it's from 1981, and it was like a Canadian film? I remember it said that.
Is National Lampoon's Canadian?
I don't know. Hold on. I did look that up, and I was like,
I would assume since National Lampoon brought they were the ones kind of. I don't necessarily understand the whole role, but they were.
Yeah, a 1981 Canadian adult animated science fantasy anthology film.
Right, so I mean, this probably had to. I bet National Lampoon's probably has some connection to that, and they probably helped bring it to market. I mean, if it was popular at the time, it would make sense to make it into a film.
Yeah.
Right, and they got I mean, John Candy's one of the voices.
Oh yeah, I think it was
in there.
John Candy, Eugene Levy. I think might have been
Probably.
another
I think
voice.
there's a fair amount of famous voices in it.
But really another besides that film being just bizarre and just you can't take your eyes off of it. Is the soundtrack is stellar. Right. It really is a good soundtrack. And you can find it on Apple iTunes because that's where I listen to my music. But it is on there. But you have to type in heavy metal film, the film, I think, to find it. Otherwise, a bunch of other heavy metal stuff pops up.
You're gonna get the genre.
Yes.
Right, as opposed to the soundtrack.
I was like, why is this not the first option? But it wasn't. But yes, there's some really classic ones. You know, right before we started the episode today, I was like, can we like rock out to one of the songs? And Nick's like, no. Because I'm pretty sure it's a copyright thing.
Yeah, I don't think we could put... I mean, we could just listen to it, and then we could tell them to listen to it at the same time.
Yes, we'll listen to it where you can't hear it, but we'll tell you when to press play. That's ridiculous, but it would be kind of fun to try to do.
I mean, obviously, it's probably really just two songs that you're thinking of, right?
Well, the ones from the show, yeah.
Yeah, what is it? One Way Ticket to Midnight? I think that's the name of the song.
The song is by the One Way Ticket. Yeah. That one. That one's Sammy Hagar, and that is called Heavy Metal. This title of that song is Heavy Metal. Look it up. And then the other one is Don Felder from the Eagles. Heavy Metal Taking a Ride in parentheses. So, but those are the two best songs for sure. I mean, you know, there's some other good. There's Journey and
there's a bunch of great. I mean, it's a bunch of great music. You know, it seems like he was in the zeitgeist at the time.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And so that's how they were able to, why they probably made the movie.
Yes, absolutely. And then, so the episode is hilarious, because it's all about the cheesing. And because the whole episode starts off with Mr. Mackey, and he's like, drugs are bad. That's that.
Right. It's hard to say what's the goal of the concept of the show, right? Or that episode, right? Is it just kind of about what inspired them to do that part of it? Is that it's always interesting what comes first, right? Like he clearly you were watching 6 Days to Air, right?
Yes, I did.
And he came up with the idea. He wanted to do something about heavy metal originally, so that must be
yes.
So it's like how the conversation must have been how do we bring the heavy metal world into South Park?
Yeah,
right?
what
so
would be the excuse?
Must have been that it's what if said like Kenny's tripping or something like that, right? And so then they had to come up with some like ridiculous way, and it's probably some comment about how prohibition doesn't really work or something like that, right? Because that's the whole thing is they tried to get rid of the cats.
Because they were treating it like that. The whole other part of the episode was that Cartman was harboring the cats.
Well, because Broflovsky, because Kyle's dad, Gerald, he was formerly addicted to cheesing. Yes,
but nobody knew until it came up again.
And so he encouraged the town to get rid of all of the cats, so that way because they've done a few different episodes on prohibition.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how much you've kept up with South Park, but
I've watched a few of the new ones, but I have not been on top of it.
Have you seen any of like the Tegrity Farms episodes?
No, I haven't seen that one.
There's a whole episode about like I'm trying to remember. So it's Christmas time, and then all the people are always driving drunk around Christmas and causing all these accidents, right? And so then they ban alcohol on Christmas. So then they all go to Randy because he grows weed basically for the town, and so then they all start getting high. And so then they all start getting high and crashing their cars on Christmas. And so then he starts, for whatever reason, I'm obviously missing some details, but for whatever reason, he adds cocaine to the weed. Or I think he actually adds cocaine to the weed at first, and that's the Christmas special.
Oh.
And so then it's cocaine and weed, so everybody's crashing. And so then they make weed illegal, and then it becomes just cocaine, and so that everybody, but the result's always the same.
Yeah.
No matter what they do,
no matter what they take away, they find a way to.
People are always going to find a way to get high,
yeah.
right? Like that's always what's going to happen. Prohibition doesn't work because people that want to get high are going to find a way.
Yes.
And then it just creates the black market, because as long as there's a desire to buy it, there's going to be somebody that's going to find a way to sell it.
Oh yeah, and that's why even at the end of this episode, that even though, you know, Kenny decided he wanted to get high on life, it was more about spending time with the real people in this world and not going off into the other world. Instead, right at the tail end of the episode, he finds just some random like flowers and he just like starts smelling them.
Really high on life.
And he still finds a way to get back there because that place is awesome. It's all about those rockin' tits. You gotta see the episode.
Yeah, man, but you never really get a good look.
I know, the guys in the crowd.
Well, it's Randy.
It was Randy. It was Randy.
Yeah, but you never really get a good look. which is inconsistent with the heavy metal movie itself, because you definitely get very clear looks.
Yes.
At all their drawn breasts.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Movie, for sure.
Oh, you just got to see that episode. Yeah, I don't know why I wanted to talk about it. I just feel like not enough people know that it was I feel like it was a really important homage that needed to be done after I saw it, obviously. So I can only imagine. And that's why it was kind of cool, because he got to watch the whole heavy metal movie again, which I didn't. But I rewatched not only Major Boobage, that episode, but I watched the 6 Days to Air. And they do reference it for just a second, because they talk about how, where I read online that 6 Days to Air, the whole premise of that is a typical South Park episode. They get it done from not knowing what the hell the episode is going to be about to a full-fledged episode of South Park in 6 days. Yeah. And I forgot, because the documentary was their very first episode right after they got done with the first of Book of Mormon on Broadway.
Oh yeah.
That literally like 2 weeks after that all happened is they're like, oh yeah, we're going back to South Park in 2 weeks, and we don't know anything we're gonna do for the 8 episodes.
It makes sense though, because that's what they were when they the Obama-McCain election, and they it was the day after, the Wednesday, because it's always been on Wednesdays. Election's Tuesday, so it's the next day they were able to air the episode with Obama winning.
I remember
so
that.
That one they clearly had a little bit of an idea, right?
Yeah.
So they must have done quite a bit of work up to. I wonder if they made 2 episodes.
They might have made 2 episodes, but we'll never know unless they decide to tell us someday.
Right.
But yeah, so it's typically 6 days for them to make an episode. However, I guess when they had their whole, the writer's room, when they're doing all their brainstorming and talking about it, and they went off on their tangent like they do to come up with an episode, when they go to the animators, they're like, all right, we've got what we want to start. Like, they don't even have the whole thing written. They're just like, here's our general idea. Let's just start building on it. And they talk about in the documentary, which I forgot about because I saw it so long ago, but that the animators, there's just a small crew, and most animation they brought up the Simpsons and like Family Guy, that there's like a whole like
generally animation takes a while.
Yeah, but they talk about there's like just a character design department, there's like a background design department, there's a storyboarding department, but at South Park Studios they do everything. All the animators do all of it, and then on top of that. Like they mentioned how, again, we were briefly talking about this, but like the Simpsons and Family Guy generally get somewhere between like 6 to 8 months to do one episode, and these guys get it done in a week. It's insane. So, but the guy brought up heavy metal, the lead animator, and he was like, yeah, because when these guys they're in the writing room and all of us are just waiting around to see what we're gonna be doing because they have no clue. They're just literally there waiting, And when they come out and Trey's like, hey, we want to do an homage to heavy metal. And they're like, what? And so, but that specific episode, which I don't know if any other episodes took longer, but this one, because basically the animators had to mimic that exact like style of animation from that film, took 8 weeks to actually do because the animators were like, you can't just like start drawing like some old comic, you know. But now when you take that into consideration, that's really cool because those same artists and animators that worked for South Park redid and like recaptured that original like
oh, I did a good job.
Yeah, this is like actually really amazing when you really think about it. Like they did a really good job with it. So anyway, it was just really interesting because that was just one of their few episodes, I'm sure, that took longer than normal. So it makes me appreciate it even more.
I think they in general have an appreciation for animation. I mean, one of the really old episodes. Do you remember the Trapper Keeper episode? Carbon gets a Trapper Keeper and then it like absorbs everything and he turns into a giant blob. But it's very clearly a reference to the anime Akira.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, but
here, fill me in and our audience.
So this has got to be within the first probably 4 or 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. It's a really old episode. He gets Trapper Keeper, and then it's like a high-tech one, so it like incorporates other technology. It will grab a calculator and like absorb it into it. And so but it starts going crazy and getting out of control. And so then it absorbs Cartman, and it turns into this big crazy blob. So Akira is I think a lot of people consider it to be like the quintessential like manga anime, movie wise at least, especially for the West. Because it came out I think around mid '80s or around when we were born, and it dealt with some tough
times. Tell everybody that, jeez.
Sit around. I didn't give any specifics. Long story short, basically this kid gets psychic powers and he can't control them, and as he thirsts for more power, it just gets completely out of control, and so he turns into this like rapidly multiplying organism blob thing that just like takes over everything. That's been a while since I've read the comics. I don't think it happens that way in the comics, or it happens longer. It's been a while since I've read it. I have a stack of them, but because the book's a lot different. Like there's this whole longer thing that happens where he actually like unfreezes Akira and they like rule Tokyo and take on the Japanese army, and he takes a piece of the moon and throws it at the Japanese Navy. The manga's very good.
I'm like, as you're describing that, it's reminding me of that episode. I feel like it's coming back to me.
It's a super old episode.
Yeah, that is an old one.
It's like, it's a Dawson's Creek Trapper Keeper.
Oh my gosh, now I definitely remember that.
Yeah. This is Dawson's Creek Trapper Keeper.
Yeah.
So I think it's always good when they have those references. I think they have just, it's interesting, I think, when you can get out of what they might find interesting based off of their episodes, right? Like it's obvious Trey Parker has an obsession with Mormons.
Yes.
And I don't think it's a disrespect of Mormons. I think he finds them very interesting.
Yeah.
I think his commentary on them is actually one of respect, because it's generally like, look at the history of it's got some stuff that probably, in hindsight, most religions have origin stories that from the outside you could pick apart pretty easily.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if it leads to people, being more positive or leading a positive life, or it brings them peace, then what's the problem? And that's kind of like when they do their whole Mormon episode.
Yeah, that Mormon episode is so good.
Oh yeah, with this dum 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 dum.
I just like the captions at the bottom. This is real.
That's not the Mormon.
Oh, isn't that the Mormon episode? That's the Scientology one, which is also a good one.
It's Trapped in the Closet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the one where Tom Cruise won't come out of the closet.
Right, and they have R. Kelly singing his Trapped in the Closet.
Trapped in the Closet. Yeah, I remember now. Oh my god.
My God.
Oh my gosh, now I remember that. Sorry, we're recollecting all these episodes right now. Oh, so good. Anyway, this is why we love this episode. And we love all South Park episodes.
Oh yeah, because South Park is, in my opinion, genius.
Well, yeah, and and I like when I was rewatching the documentary, how even at that point, because when they filmed that, again, this was obviously this was back in 2011, I think, when they did the documentary. Even at that point, they were like, even when they pick on any celebrities, and they're like, hey, did you, and nobody even gets offended at that point. He's like, did you see that? Did you? He's like, yeah, but when they got offended, people were like, yeah, it's South Park, shut the fuck up.
Well, they weren't talking. Wasn't that when they were talking about that's more about the censors, right? They get away with stuff. They're like, well, that's South Park.
Well, yeah, they were talking about with censors and just people in general, because that's where they're like, they don't have any friends in Hollywood anywhere, because they've unabashedly made fun of everybody and anything. And Bill Hader talks about that in the
I think that in general that they just don't have a lot of respect for the concept of celebrity. They think the whole idea of celebrity is absurd in and of itself. Whereas that's the whole reason that they went to the Oscars tripping on LSD, because it's just like, this whole thing is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And just about people sucking their own cocks, pretty much.
Yes, and I loved, because they brought it up, how they talked about that, and how their whole goal for the night was, no matter when somebody brought up the dresses they were wearing, that they would immediately go, oh, isn't it a magical evening? Everyone looks so elegant. They would never admit or address when somebody mentioned they were wearing wigs and a dress. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. But no, they were. But Bill Hader, because they interviewed him for a second, because Bill Hader was also a writer on SNL at the time, and he was. And it's funny because he was considered a writer for South Park, but I don't remember where I heard it, or whether it was from him or somewhere, and I could be incorrect about it. But I'm just remembering Bill Hader's I get credit as a writer, but I don't know, I just kind of sit in the room and laugh when they talk about it. He's like, I don't even know what I'm contributing. It's the coolest job, just to kind of hang out. But he talks about why he loves being in the writer's room with Trey and Matt and the other writers in there, because it doesn't even matter. They can just pick on any celebrity and go with it, because they don't care. But we're at SNL. Kind of the thing is that we treat everybody equally. Yeah. So it's be offended, but we're not singling anybody out in any sense of the term. Even though you may get singled out in an episode, they're not singling anybody out as a whole. Everybody's fair game. I mean, hell, they make fun of themselves all the time. Yeah. They do not take themselves seriously, but yet it's so brilliant. But yeah, Bill Hader, because he talks about that, he's like, when you're on SNL, and he's like, it's so different, because you're wanting to make fun of this person, but wait a minute, they might be a guest on the show one day, and then wait a minute, they know this person who was a guest, and we don't want them to be offended. And he's like, it's just a nightmare to sometimes write, because it's such a funny idea, but then they're like, well, hold on, you got to think about the connections of who knows who. Where on South Park, they don't even talk about it. He's like, it's great.
Yeah, too. I mean, I would assume for especially a lot of the people on us, a lot of people in Hollywood in general, right? Networking and all that kind of stuff is important. I don't blame people for having taking part in the business that they want to be a part of, and just not shitting on the people that might help them out, right? But Trey Park, Matt Stone, they just don't care, because they're just going to do whatever
they don't actually have to work with the real celebrities.
At this point, they can do whatever the fuck
they want. And
because they've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that...
And they don't ever really, the celebrities are never actually on the show.
Right, because
they're doing the voices in the likeness of...
Right, and impersonated poorly.
Poorly. Right. Yeah, they don't, yeah.
Well, then if you think about it, you think about how much where you talked about how much the other shows put into making their animation, they probably do pretty well, considering they don't have a lot of overhead.
Yeah.
For
that's
what they
true.
make.
That is probably very, very true. Which is also another...
Even though they only do 10 episodes a season now.
Yeah. But yeah, that is true. They probably make a lot more money doing it that way, but to them you could tell it's not really about the money, because I think
but at the same time, it's you want the people the people that are creating the stuff you enjoy to be successful,
paid
so that
well.
they can keep doing it, and keep creating the stuff that you like.
And they're put on enormous pressure, I can only imagine, but it's probably a cool mix of they live for it because it's their passion, but the pressure's on. It's that positive pressure.
I'd be interested. I would imagine, I mean, especially considering how little time that they really have to put into South Park.
Yeah.
That or at least maybe that's probably unfair. time in reference to the year.
Yeah.
That they have to put into it. It's probably a fair amount of fun. You know, like that's.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know that's probably a big part of why they still do it. Just like It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, outstanding show. And they only do like 10, 12 episodes a season now because they got other projects going on. But they probably because just they enjoy it so much, they keep coming together to do it.
Yeah.
And the fans still like it, you know. So, I mean, those are two shows that I'll be just so sad when they end.
Yeah. I mean, Trey talks about that in the documentary even from back then. He's like, you know, it's just so fun to do that they were kind of worried coming back in when, like I was mentioning, because the Book of Mormon just like finished on Broadway for the first time, but as soon as they're back in it, they're like, oh, it's like it reminds them of how much fun and high and even, you know, they talk about like how did it get from, you know, because they were actually taking a few weeks and it just slowly but surely just on its own. They were like putting the pressure on themselves to get the episodes done faster and faster, and it just turned into that. And Trey said it. He's like, you know, even in some of these episodes, you know, it's kind of cool because he is involved legitimately from the very start to the very finish. Like,
well, he does the vast majority of the work. Like,
he's the only one that's allowed to write. He's actually the only one that
when you talk about writer's
writes.
room, it's like the writers help write the overall concept, but then he does the entire script.
Yeah, but he's the one that sits. Yeah, he just sits there and writes the script while everyone just kind of waits and looks around.
Well, it's like, do they even wait? They're probably just done. You know,
well,
like, they're the writers, at least, you know, they're done.
But everybody hangs out to the very end because you gotta wait because they're animating as he's still writing.
Well, yeah, the animators are, and then I guess if something comes up and they want to change it, it's not working, then
because that whole documentary was about Human Centipad. You remember?
Oh my god.
And how he came up with, you guys, if you haven't seen that episode, that's another good one.
Why won't it read?
If you're gonna fuck me, at least take me to dinner first. He goes on the talk show.
Oh, yeah,
my mom fucked me at Best Buy. Oh, is that us? That's your dog.
That's
All right, well, that's the dog. We're at a house. Not at a cool studio.
This is low budget, you know.
Very low budget.
So please watch and subscribe, and we can become higher budget.
So we can have like at least a studio without a dog barking in the background.
Whatever. We live in fucking San Diego.
Yeah, we can't afford that.
We're gonna have to have like a million followers before we can afford a studio a month or something.
Well, I know what you could do is you could really like transform a room and then write it off as a business expense.
Well, yeah.
He's like, yeah, whatever.
This is supposed to be one of the kids' rooms.
Oh, well, too bad. Oh, man, we have to just do an addition to your house. That's what's going to have to happen.
Well, actually, that is probably what's going to have to
good.
happen. Because it's too expensive to move.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. So then you have to do 2 additions, because one's going to be for more space and one's going to be for a studio. Anyway, sorry, went off topic. It's not actually off topic, but you know what I mean.
I mean, it's pretty off topic from heavy metal Major Boobage as the original topic.
Yes. But it's within the podcastery happening. I probably just made up a word.
Well, yeah, because we have no form or goals, or really, you know, so everything's fair game.
We have a goal.
What is that goal?
Our mission
What is that goal
to
right
be...
now? For this top, what was the goal of this topic?
Oh, yeah, there was no goal.
Like,
I thought you meant our overall why for the podcast. No. For this, no, I had no idea. Actually, I told Nick right before I got here, I was like, I had a bunch of notes. Totally left them at home.
I'm curious as to what was on your notes.
I don't know. I don't remember. I remember some of the stuff. Because one of them was a bunch of notes from the Major Boobage episode. And I was like, oh, that's good. And I don't know what I was writing, because, of course, all episodes.
Well, you should have written all the different names for cheesing. Was it?
I know. I actually think I did.
Mary Jane Piss in Your Face Fun Time or something like that?
Yes, I actually did write those down, like the different forms of cheesing. I think I even wrote down all the different things Mr. Mackey says in the beginning, where he's like, okay, like drugs are bad, like like sniffing.
It gives him the idea.
Yeah, it gives him all the different. And he's like, probably shouldn't have told you that. Okay. And then the kids immediately go home to do it.
Right. To check it out.
To the very next episode.
The best is Gerald's setup.
Oh, I know. He's like,
so the cat's already there underneath the cloth.
No, he didn't have the cat. He has the projector. Oh, right. Yeah, but he had to put the cat in there.
The cat.
Yes.
Isn't the cat already there when he he confiscated the cat and then it's already, but it's all just ready to go.
Yeah, he had the projector and he's like talking to himself. He's like, I'm only gonna do it one more time. It's I have to, and he just had the whole thing set up. Like the whole. You just gotta see the episode. If you haven't seen it and then you go watch it because you listen to this, you're welcome. Because it's such a crazy freaking episode.
I will say that, I mean, it is a great episode. It is not the greatest episode.
No, it's not the greatest, but it's one that's close to our hearts.
Because then you have the Minge.
The Minge is, Minge!
I don't know what that one's called.
That was the Oprah episode, right?
Yeah,
talking about Oprah's vagina that takes everyone hostage. Yeah, that's a good one.
Her asshole named Gary. That's a good one.
I forgot about that one.
My mom always said, my mom is Catholic and I grew up Catholic, but her favorite episode is Red Hot Catholic Love. And that is a great episode where people start losing faith in the Catholic Church. And so Mr. Father... I can't think of his name.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
The priest's name.
Yes. Father, not McKen. No.
But either way, the priest, whatever. So he goes on a mission to try and, help the Catholic Church, while at the same time, Kyle bets Cartman that he cannot successfully shove food up his ass and then shit out his mouth. Yeah. And so so that's the whole episode where people are becoming atheists and having parties where they shove food up their ass and then shit out their mouths.
That's the Martha Stewart one, right? Is that where Martha Stewart shoves the turkey up her...
And then puts like confetti and stuff in there and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that was the making queefs beautiful.
Oh, that's right.
That was the queef.
But the whole point of shoving food up your ass to shit out your mouth is at the end of the episode they could talk about how when we lose sight of what things are really about, then we all just end up spitting a bunch of shit out of our mouths. Because he goes to so the whole thing is this came out when the scandals were real big about with the molestations, and then but
they normalized it.
Well, yeah. So right? he goes and they're like he finally makes his way to the Vatican and he's like, why do we allow this? And he's like, well, it's been in the document of Holy Vatican Law. Well, maybe we should change the document of
That's like the best. How did they come up with that shit?
But the Gilgamesh vagina is like aliens teeth or something like well, maybe we should forget about the Gilgamesh. And then it turns out that the supreme leader of the Catholic Church is this giant spider creature. And he's like, so that's what everything's so outrageous. And he's like, well, forget what the Bible's really all about. And we just start spewing a bunch of shit out of our mouths. And then Randy's got a mouth. He's like, what did he say?
I remember that one. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. That just reminds me of the other, because we referenced that a lot. And the other episode that I like to reference a lot from South Park is when, Kyle, he gets a check from his grandmother for his birthday. And, he and Randy, they, go to the bank, and he deposits it.
Not Kyle, it's Stan.
No, Stan. It was Stan. Yeah, it was Stan.
And it's gone.
What do you mean it's gone?
We'll just post them over from your dad's account, move it over to this money market, and it's gone.
Next in line, sir.
Excuse me, you do not have money in this bank. You need to move aside. This is for customers bank at this bank only.
And that's the same episode where Randy buys the margarita.
I'm pretty sure that's the whole Margaritaville.
Yeah, that's the whole Margaritaville.
And he's trying to get it, and he finances it through Sur Le Table.
Oh yeah, Sur Le Table. We're not able to help you here, sir.
Right, it's really because they're making fun of the mortgage crisis and how they kept selling these bad loans. Yes. And so then he goes to the bailout, or then he goes to get he's fighting trying to return it. That's what he's trying to return it. Because
he's going
from
place
ends up
to
at
place.
Some federal organization or whatever, and so they figure what's gonna happen with this Margaritaville, and they cut off the head of a chicken.
And it rolls in the roulette
dies
table.
on bailout.
Yes. It's like a roulette table.
Bank bailout, yeah. So yeah.
That's a really good episode too.
They're all good, man. South Park's genius. Like I said, it's just the social commentary of South Park is, I think, just truly brilliant.
And it's so interesting because it's like when they're sitting in the room, it seems like the strategy is like something that just generally happened to him, and then what's like popular right now in the news. It seems like that's like what they did was. He's like, I don't know, like with the human Sentai pad, he's like, I don't know, I just was downloading iTunes again and I had to hit the damn agree button. And then he one night was like, what am I agreeing to that I have to...
What's the segue, right?
What,
like,
yeah.
I say that, or did it start out as it's like, all right, we got to do something about this human centipede movie, man.
No, it starts off with him talking about iTunes.
Oh, is it?
That's how it started with that, and then it's just because that movie was
what could you
popular.
accidentally agree to?
Yes. Yeah, he's like, because he was
becoming a human centipede.
Yeah. And that happened to be like a popular movie at the time, and then and also iPads were like a thing, and everyone's like doing everything to get an iPad.
Oh yeah, the user agreement thing. Why won't he read it?
You didn't read it.
Do you want cuttlefish and asparagus? Or do you...
Yeah, cuttlefish and asparagus, or like vanilla paste or something. It's like vanilla paste.
Cuttlefish and asparagus, okay. Yeah. Oh man.
They're recording. They record like part of the documentary of Trey and Matt doing the voices for that. Cause
like,
it's like, and it's so funny because they're recording it and they're just dying laughing in the middle. So whoever's recording it's having to like cut and paste probably to put it all together because these guys are just like crying laughing while they're...
I'm sure that happens a lot.
I know, but it's brilliant. Like it must be so fun to just go at it. It just sounds like a blast to do. But yet they have this great commentary. Like they have these great opinions, all masked in. I think they have a very just grounded view of the world. I was just gonna use the same word. It's grounded. Yes.
You know, I mean, it's interesting that they really seem to not have been corrupted by their own success. Yeah. You know, it's hard to say. You never really know. Yeah, all sorts of celebrities have all sorts of crazy ass shit that you find out years later. Yeah. So,
if you gave me too much money, I'd do some weird shit too.
Right.
So,
you never really know, but it seems like that for the most part that they, just because they fully rejected the, concept of it to begin, of celebrity as a whole to begin with, as it was, right? Yeah. I still remember the story you told me about when he showed up at AR Valentine.
Oh yeah, that's oh my god. So I've actually met Trey Parker. That is. Thank you for reminding me. I actually have met him. So years ago, I was working at the AR Valentine at the Lodge of Torrey Pines, and I was a fine dining server. Anybody that knows me gets really fucking annoyed when I say that. It's great.
But it's factually true.
It is true. It's true. It's just because of how I say it, like an ass. Anyway. So, and a lot of celebrities went there, Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel and all these other people. So, now, every other celebrity that typically goes there, everybody knows who they are. When Trey was there, he was with his mother, and they were staying there, and I'm like, Trey Parker? Everyone's, who the fuck? I know, everyone's like, who the fuck is that? I'm like, are you insane? It's the fucking creator, writer, the everything of South Park. They're like, oh. I'm like, what do you mean, oh? I'm like, he's a genius. And
Orgasmo?
Basketball? I know, like, freaking, anyway.
Cannibal the Musical?
Cannibal the Musical! If you haven't seen that, again, do yourself a favor.
I guarantee.
Let's build a snowman.
Almost nobody that will ever see this has probably seen that movie. But, it's... And
it was his first film that he did when he was in college.
Right, it was like their student project
or
something.
It's like...
He's billed as Juan Schwartzman.
Yes. No, Raul. It's Raul.
No, it's Juan.
I thought it was Raul.
No, it's Juan Schwartzman.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Alright, we'll come back with
Google it right now. I guarantee you it's Juan Schwartzman.
I swear I thought it was Raul. Wasn't he Raul in another film?
I think you're thinking of Hunter S. Thompson as Raul Duke.
Maybe. Hold on a second. We're going to come back to the story about me meeting Trey Parker here in a second. And how I probably sounded like an idiot. Hi, bass Ball. It's not easy to spell.
No, it's Cannibal the Musical.
Oh, sorry. Why am I thinking that? Sorry. I'm going on some other... Because I'm trying to type and think what I'm going to say next. Well, that's not what I wanted to pop up. Cannibal. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, you start typing in cannibal.
Nothing more interesting on a podcast than watching somebody look at something on Google on their phone.
But I look good doing it. All right. It was 1993.
Yeah, he's billed as Juan Schwartzman. I guarantee you I've seen it more times than you.
Probably.
I assure you that on the credits on that movie, he is Juan
Production
Schwartzman.
company was Avenging Conscious Cannibal Films.
Right. Or the distribution company. I think Tromo is how they got out there.
The problem is it says Trey's actual name.
Right, you'd have to see the credits on the movie.
Oh, well, I can't friggin' do that here. Hold on. Cast. Juan Schwartzman. All right, fine. I thought it was Raul.
Yeah. Well,
there was somebody else, I think, on there that I swear had Raul.
Well, Raul is a real name, so there could be easily somebody that was part of the cast whose name was Raul. You know.
I thought it was Raul. Fine, he won.
So that's because
he does have a better memory than me, like overall. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to challenge it. Keep you second guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm more committed to my fanship of Trey Park.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, on a deeper level.
Yes, he is. It's fine. But I did meet him.
Right.
And I served him bacon. So that day, you know, I'm in the back, you know, in the kitchen freaking out. And I remember the chef was like, "You need to calm the fuck down." And I was like, "Whoa, sorry. I gotta use this microphone." He got so mad at me, and I'm like, "No, this is mad." I was so upset with everybody because everyone didn't want to nobody knew who he was. So I'm like, "Can I please be the server for the table?" Like, yeah, who gives a shit? And I was like, "Yes." So I'm like, you know, like, I don't know. I had to serve him and his mother, and they were so nice. And when I went up to the table, and, you know, I welcomed them there, and I took their order, and I was like, "I just want to say I'm a huge fan, and I love your work, but I'll leave it at that." And I was just trying to be, like, cool about it. He's like, "Thank you." And then he's like, "Oh, can I also have some bacon?" I was like, "Of course."
Kept it professional.
Yes, I kept it professional, but inside I was freaking out. And then every time I went to the back where the service station was and the kitchen, I was like freaking out, like sweating, and they're just like, "Who in the fuck? He's not even good looking." I'm like, "It doesn't matter if he's good looking. That's not the point."
Did you go run and find Luca or Kyle and be like, "You guys know"?
Yeah, well, Luca knew and Kyle knew, but they couldn't come out from the kitchen because they're not.
Too, yeah.
Yeah, they're. Well, I think
they worked downstairs, didn't they?
No, they were working up there at the time, and I think Luca was able to. Which we should probably have Luca as a guest on the show.
Great, yeah.
I just talked to him a few months ago. Because he and his wife are characters. They really are. I love them. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure I remember they figured out a way to, like, get a sneak peek, and I think they somehow snuck around, because Trey and his mom sat outside on, like, the deck.
Yeah.
And I think they, like, went and hid in, like, the little private dining room where you can kind of see out there. And they're like, "There he is, the man, the myth, the legend." Yeah, so that was kind of cool. And, you know, it was... Now, I didn't get as weird as when Justin Timberlake visited, because...
I'm sure some people got real weird.
Well...
Did you?
I did.
Did you hold it together?
I held it together even though I was freaking out. He's really short, sorry. He's, like, really short.
I knew he was short.
Yeah, and I didn't realize he was that short. But anyway, he's very... This was when he was still just dating Jessica Biel, his now wife. But, but I didn't get as weird as one of the gals, and you know who you are if you ever watch this, that when Justin came, anything he had put his mouth on, straw, glass, fork, you see where this is going? When they went to the back, she would be like, Now, I didn't fucking do that when Trey Parker came, because I'm not a freak. And I didn't even do it with Justin Timberlake, and I'm a huge Justin Timberlake fan. But I was like, you gotta draw the line somewhere. But
you should have drawn the line way before that.
Well, I didn't do this. It was somebody else, and you know who you are. I love you, but you know what you did. Anyway, and...
It's like digging through someone's laundry to sniff their drawers.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. That's bad, but this is bad, too. Especially because...
I mean, this is potentially worse.
I know, because they did it in front of... Like, we were watching, they're like... they just, like, looked you right in the eyes, like...
Like, even, like, why? What do you even get out of that?
I don't know.
Like,
his DNA in your body, ew.
You're not even getting a smell or anything. Like, you think you get... you're gonna taste the food.
I know.
Like, it's just gross.
I know.
There's nothing else about it.
What
It's
if you
just
had
gross.
an STD or something we didn't know about? I don't know.
Or the cold, or
Or
cold, or the
cold or
flu.
flu,
Like,
what?
it's
Anyway.
just, it's just, yeah, it's just.
Can
gross.
you
It's
tell how
just
adult
gross.
we are that we're worried about germs?
Whatever,
This was
just-
all pre-pandemic.
Whatever. This is licking other people's, licking a stranger's utensil. Just because you know who he is, he's still a stranger.
I know he is still a stranger.
You know, licking a stranger's used utensils is fucking gross.
It is gross. Point
Whoever
is,
you are,
I know.
disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Disgusting.
And there's probably people that have done it for other situations like that. But I witnessed it for Justin Timberlake. And I'm just trying to point out that my freak outedness during when Trey Parker... I never did that. I didn't even think about that. But I was just like, I served him bacon. Like, that was like my claim to fame. And I met his mother.
At least you did get the chance to give him a compliment.
Yeah, and
it
it was cool. And I kept it short because I didn't want to get fired.
Oh, he probably wouldn't have appreciated it anyway. If you got weird.
Oh, well, yeah, I would. Well, yeah.
Who
and
would?
Who would ever?
Weird.
Like, even if somebody approached me and they started getting all fucking weird, which I have had that happen with strange dudes, then I'm just like, ugh, dudes. Anyway. So, I get it. And I appreciate that because I think Matthew McConaughey just did a round of interviews, and he was, I forgot which, I think it was like Ed Milet and somebody else, but he was talking about that. He's like, when people come up to me, I immediately know if I need to, like, walk away. He's like, I don't mean to be rude. I love my fans. But you can just tell immediately, like, the energy they're bringing, if they're going to just take it the wrong direction or they're, like, sincere, and I want to give them a piece of my time. I try not to give too much. He's like, anybody out there listening, like, nobody wants you to be weird. Like, it's just so uncomfortable for anybody.
It's gotta be tough, man. Like, being... just being in an entertainment or something and people constantly approaching you, like, I'm sure it's gotta be a weird balance, right? Because it's the fans are the ones that are the reason your career exists, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you want to support them, but at the same time, it's like you probably also want to, like, have a personal life and be able to, have some peace, so to speak, at certain times.
Yeah, to be left alone. I get it.
Right, but that's part of essentially that's part of the deal, though. When you decide to choose a career in entertainment, and put your face out there, that's ultimately your goal, isn't it? Like, your goal is to be famous, so that that's what the success in entertainment is. So that I have some sympathy, but minimal level, especially if you're, like, super rich and famous, like, boo-hoo to you.
Yeah, exactly.
You chose a career of putting your face out there. It's like, at this point, like, I would hate it, because I just don't like to be around people or talk to anybody I don't know ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
For any reason.
Yes.
So, like, if this was ever successful and random people came up to me, it would be, like, a nightmare for me. But that's still, like, part of the deal.
Yeah, no, that would be,
Like,
I'd have to be your Matt Stone to Trey Parker, because apparently what I relearned from that documentary is Trey will, like, never get enough debate or fight and is totally, like, kind of back offish to people, where Matt's the one's like, got a problem here? Is there a problem? And, like, he has no problem arguing, get in front of people, and he kind of has a little bit of, like, a bulldog, like, helping protect Trey a little bit from people. And I was like, oh, I can see, their yin to their yang is, like, pretty awesome. So, but yeah, I could, and I feel like that's what makes for a good combination of any type of duo action, one's
Some
strengths.
level of balance, right?
Yeah, one's strengths is the other's weaknesses, but it still balances out, absolutely. But yeah, so that was really cool that I got to meet him years ago. So if you ever watch this, Trey Parker, and you remember me serving you and your mother bacon, it was me.
That has to be, like, 15 years ago.
No, whoa!
Right?
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, yeah.
I've lived here for...
Why do you have to say it like that?
In August,
like...
I'll have been here 13 years.
Alright, fine.
And you were already done at Air Valentine before I moved here.
Yeah, that's true. So it was probably 15 or 16 years ago.
That's crazy.
I was a child. Yeah, that was a long time ago. But still, he was, nobody knew what he was. Even though South Park was huge already at this point, it was already
his
huge.
face isn't out there a lot. Like, I mean, except you just have to be a fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where else his face is out there, right? Because he's the lead in Cannibal the Musical,
Yeah.
Basketball, and Orgasmo.
Such a good movie.
They're all great. They're all fucking hilarious, man.
They're so
the comedy
good.
is just, because it's just no holds barred, right? Like, it's just comedy because it's funny and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's
there's
just funny. Yeah, that's all they care about. They're like, it's just funny. That's why you do it, And
And the guy, oh man, the other guy I always want to meet. I don't know if more, but I would want to meet right after the two of them would be the guy that plays Squeak.
Squeak! Whatever happened to that guy? He is.
I'm sure he still works with them. I don't know, but yeah.
I don't think he's involved in South Park because he wasn't.
I don't know if he does voices. I would assume if he does.
Maybe he probably comes in for certain voices, possibly, yeah.
But yeah, because he's in. I mean, he's for sure in all the live action.
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, he is.
So he's just so great in that. Like he's such a good person for the characters and the roles he played. Like he does them so well too.
I'm sorry I don't know your name all the time.
Not like you'll ever see this, but props to you for being amazing. And I'm sorry I don't know your name.
Bravo.
I guess that's probably a good place as any to wrap it up.
Yes, I'll say one more thing. Just pointing out how you were talking about the celebrityism and you put yourself out there. Just one more thing to say about Trey Parker and Matt Stone, that despite the fact that they have achieved this level of success, they've done a really good job about keeping all that away from them as much as possible.
Well, that's what I was saying before, right? Like they never really seem to be corrupted by the craziness of their own success.
Yeah, that's really brilliant, because can you even name somebody else that nobody really, I don't know, and the only other people that come to mind that are kind of like that is Keanu Reeves. Would be the old, and he was just here recently. He was at the Casbah. Anyway,
the people that the celebrities that
truly just try to live a normal life and just do what they do. He's the only other one that comes to mind. I guess Matthew McConaughey, kind of, sort of, but
I think the trick is to be, for lack of a better word, uninteresting.
Yes,
and not that they're boring people.
No,
but they're just not living scandalous. Interesting lives to the tabloid public.
They have nothing to prove to anyone. It's just they just want to do it because they're just having a fucking good time.
Well, they're not living attention grabbing lives. Right? I don't want to, just the word scandalous. I don't want to. People are allowed to do whatever they want. I have no judgment for what anybody does. So to call anything scandalous, but it's attention grabbing for tabloid attention. Yeah. And I'm sure a fair amount of it is on purpose for the purpose of gaining the attention.
Yes. And
for the furthering of the career, right? Because entertainment career is about being known, right? Yeah. I'm sure it's a competitive field.
Yes. So anyway, to wrap up the episode, you definitely need to. You don't have to. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But we're recommending to check out some of the things we talked about today, like the film Heavy Metal. Or at the very least, if you don't want to watch the whole film, watch that episode of Major Boobage of South Park and, re-familiarize yourself with the genius of Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Yeah, I would recommend watching every episode of South Park and using it to guide your life.
Yes, it is it's the North Star for how to live in this crazy world.
But you gotta be able to read between the lines and get the messages underneath.
Yes, and, my big advice to anybody is stop looking for reasons to be offended. Just have fun, be playful. So I think that wraps it up for this episode of This Could Go Either Way.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Of course, like and subscribe.
Please do. Again, I'm your host, Cynthia Calori.
I'm Nicholas Wilson, and This Could Go Either Way.
See you next time.